It was supposed to be the kind of Saturday you forget in a week: cake, family photos, polite laughter, the kind of day that slides by softly. Instead, it became the day my trust in my family cracked open and never closed again. At my mom's birthday dinner, my own family abandoned my 12-year-old daughter at a homeless shelter because, as they put it, they didn't have space for her. Then they drove to a luxury restaurant to celebrate with my sister's family. I didn't shout, I didn't throw a glass or flip a table. I took action, and by the next day, the seams of their lives began to split, thread by thread. My name is Rachel, and I'm a nurse at St. Luke's Hospital. I've learned to live on caffeine and stubbornness. Being tired is basically part of the uniform. That morning I was on shift before sunrise, 12 hours into the week already, moving on muscle memory, charting vitals, checking meds, managing the quiet catastrophes that never make the news. I kept telling myself I'd make it to Mom's birthday dinner afterward. That tiny promise kept me from sinking into the chair in the staff lounge and never getting up again. During my lunch break, I called Mom. I balanced a paper cup of coffee on my knee and said, "Happy birthday, Mom," in the sing-song voice grown daughters use when they're trying not to sound exhausted. She sounded busy, distracted, talking over the background noise. I immediately recognized my sister's voice, bright and commanding. Jessica is 4 years younger and has always been the one in charge of parties, decorations, playlists, opinions. I heard her say something about table settings and balloon arches like she was directing an awards show. They'd promised to pick up my daughter Lily and bring her along. "Don't worry," Jessica had told me the night before. "We'll get her ready. You just survive your shift and bring the present." It sounded helpful, like teamwork. At the time, I was grateful. Early that afternoon, a patient of mine was discharged sooner than expected. My supervisor peered over her glasses, the universal sign for mercy, and said, "Go home, Rachel. You've earned an early exit." For once I didn't argue. I washed my hands, clocked out, and drove straight to the restaurant. It was one of those glass front places with a private room and soft lighting that makes everyone look richer. Jessica had booked it days in advance because, of course, presentation is half the point. I wanted to surprise them. For once, I wouldn't arrive late and rumpled. I pictured walking in while the candles were still lit, Lily laughing with her cousins, Mom pretending to hate the fuss. The hostess led me past a blur of perfume and chatter to a long table by the window. There they all were, my parents in the middle, Jessica glowing in something sparkly, her husband Ryan scrolling his phone like a nervous tick, their kids Brianna and Jacob already halfway through dessert. Plates, glasses, ribbons, a tiny tower of gifts, and one absence so obvious it made the room tilt. "No Lily," I smiled automatically. The way you do when you're about to ask a question you hope has a normal answer. "Where's Lily? Did she go to the restroom?" Silence. The kind that takes a second too long and makes your stomach drop. Brianna smirked. "She's volunteering." I blinked. "She's what?" A soft ripple of laughter at the table. The kind you hear when you're the only one not in on the joke. My dad lifted his wine glass and said, "Your sister thought it would be good for Lily to help at the shelter today. Teach her some perspective." I stared at Jessica. "You took my daughter to a homeless shelter? Alone?" Jessica's smile didn't budge. "Relax, Rachel. She's perfectly safe. I volunteer there every week. She's staying for a little while learning gratitude." "She's 12, I said, a little louder than I meant to. "She's almost 13, Jessica replied smoothly. "Don't be dramatic. She's been acting out lately." I thought she could use a reality check. Mom touched my arm gently, a practiced peacekeeper. "Jessica's just helping, dear. You're always so busy." I reached into my bag and pulled out my phone. "I'll call her." A ringtone chimed close, too close. It was coming from Jessica's purse. Jessica sighed, dug around, and produced Lily's phone, then handed it to me like it was a napkin. "She doesn't need to be glued to that all day." And there it was. The tilt became a drop. Something inside me shifted, like a lock sliding shut. "You left my daughter with strangers and took her phone?" Ryan chuckled. "Technically, they're not strangers. They know Jessica." I pushed my chair back hard enough to rattle the silverware. Mom murmured, "Rachel, please don't cause a scene." My humor joints kicked in like they do when everything's about to implode. "Too late," I said. "Scene caused, and I walked out before anyone could put a hand on my sleeve. Outside, the air hit like a furnace. My hands shook as I jammed the key into the ignition. The drive blurred traffic lights, horns, the thudding echo of my own heartbeat. Every red light felt like theft, every minute stolen from Lily's safety. The shelter sat at the edge of downtown, a tired brick building with a faded sign, Family Resource Center. I pushed through the glass door and headed for the front desk like I was still on shift and someone's life depended on me. A woman behind the counter looked up. "Can I help you? My daughter was dropped off here. Lily Carter." Someone said she was volunteering. Her face softened. "You're her mother. Thank God. We were told you'd be here hours ago. She's been waiting in the playroom hours ago." The words landed like a stone. The hallway smelled like detergent and crayons. Somewhere a toddler was crying. The woman led me into a common room lined with worn couches and a bulletin board full of flyers. And there was Lily, backpack on her knees, trying very hard not to cry. When she saw me, the breath left her like a balloon deflating. She ran straight into my arms. "You came," she whispered. "I'll always come," I said into her hair. "Always." She pulled back to look at me, eyes shiny. "Aunt Jessica said I have to learn how lucky I am. She said if I like boys at 12, I'll end up here." It took me a second to process. "Like boys?" Lily nodded, cheeks red. "There's a boy from school, Tyler, and Brianna likes him too. I just said I thought he was nice. That's all. A nothing comment." I swallowed, the heat rising up my throat. "You did nothing wrong," I told her. The words more steady than I felt. "I was scared," she said softly. "I didn't know if you knew." "I know now." I squeezed her hand. The staffer waited politely, relief all over her face. I thanked her, signed a form I barely read, and walked Lily out. The evening sky was the color of smoke. Lily climbed into the car quietly, still gripping my hand like it was the only thing not moving. Halfway home, she whispered, "Mom, did I do something bad?" I kept my eyes on the road. "No, you were honest. Some people just don't handle honesty well." She stared out the window and nodded. I wanted to promise everything would be okay, to say families don't do these things. But the words stuck, because now I knew they did. When we reached home, she went straight to her room. I stood in the hallway holding the phone Jessica had confiscated, staring at the black screen. My reflection looked unfamiliar, tired. Yes, but also something else, certain. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I just knew what came next. Something shifted in me that night, and nothing would ever be the same. I lay awake, eyes open in the dark, replaying every detail. Lily alone in that playroom, her backpack clutched like a life vest. The restaurant laughter, the smirk, the ringtones spilling out of Jessica's purse like a confession. By 2 a.m., I gave up trying to sleep. I made tea I didn't drink and watched the window turn from black to gray. You tell yourself moments like this are one-offs. Families lose their minds for a day. Then you patch it up. That's what families do, right? But I had been patching for decades. This didn't come from nowhere. It never does. Jessica was born when I was 4. I remember the hospital hallway, the pink blanket, the way the light seemed to tilt toward her and away from me. Even as kids, she glowed and I organized. I kept track of her homework, her toys, her stories. She performed. I set the stage. Mom used to say, "Rachel, you're so reliable." It sounded like a compliment until I learned reliable often means invisible. Jessica grew into a storm of charm, singing, laughing, convincing everyone of anything. She could spill juice on the carpet and somehow make it my fault for handing her the wrong cup. Chaos with perfect timing. Meanwhile, I became the opposite. College, nursing school, a predictable life. She chased ideas, art school, travel, blogging, a wellness brand that lasted 2 months. I changed bandages and saved for retirement. 2 different planets, same parents orbiting one sun. Jessica. When our grandmother died, the will shocked everyone. She skipped our parents entirely and left the family house, the one we grew up into, Jessica and me, half each. No one said it out loud, but I knew why. Grandma had seen the pattern long before I did. At first, nothing changed. Jessica kept living there with Mom and Dad in the only house she'd ever known. Later, when she married Ryan, he moved in too. I was the one who left, found a small apartment near the hospital, built a quiet life that didn't echo with their noise. They still called it our family home. I called it the house I paid for without living in. Her wedding had lace, fireworks, a live band, the whole magazine spread. I watched her glide down the aisle, everyone toasting Jessica's beautiful new beginning. Lily wasn't born yet. Back then, I thought maybe the imbalance would fade once we were adults. Spoiler, it did in single quotes T. Ryan seemed nice at first, polite, corporate, perfectly pressed. The kind of man who treats waiters like props. They had Brianna, then Jacob, and the spotlight grew. By the time Lily arrived, the next generation already knew their blocking. Brianna's dance recitals were national emergencies. Lily's A+ report cards earned a distracted, "That's nice, honey. Watching your child learn she's second place reopens every old wound." I swallowed it. I always did. The money started small. Just until Friday, Jessica would say, batting lashes that should have come with a warning label. 100 here, 500 there, late fees, a photography course to build her brand, a deposit for a pop-up boutique, launch costs for a new idea. Every time I helped, I told myself it was temporary. Someday she'd grow up. Spoiler, she did in single quotes T. Mom was the translator. You've always been good with money, Rachel. She's trying. Translation, keep paying. It keeps her happy. The amounts grew. When her beauty subscription box venture flopped spectacularly, cost more to ship than it made, she called crying about debts. I wired $3,000 before I even asked the total. I stopped counting after a while. But the receipts didn't. They lived in a folder in my desk like little ghosts with numbers on them. Then came the $20,000 call. She wanted to launch an online series empowering women to live authentically. I asked how debt collectors felt about authenticity. She didn't laugh. That was the day I drew the line. If I help again, it has to be official, I told her. I'm not your bank. We'll make it a loan, and your half of the house will secure it. She hesitated, then agreed. Desperation makes people agreeable. We signed the papers at my kitchen table, notarized them the next day. She promised to repay within a year. I kept the file locked away and told no one. Not Mom, especially not Mom. Years passed. Nothing changed. Jessica reinvented failure as creative evolution. Every new idea came with a fresh apology and another empty promise. The house grew louder. Her kids, my parents, the constant whir of her projects, but somehow it never echoed with gratitude. I visited less. When I did, Mom gushed about Jessica's latest business. Ryan poured me a thin smile with the wine, like I was an employee being tolerated at a company party. Even Lily noticed. They don't like us much, do they? She whispered once in the car. I told her families were complicated. She said, that's a fancy word for unfair. Smart kid. By Mom's birthday, Jessica still hadn't repaid a cent. The interest alone could have paid for a vacation I'd never take. But I hadn't pushed. I told myself peace was worth more than principle. I was wrong. Back in the dark of my living room, listening to Lily breathing softly down the hall, I opened the drawer and pulled out the old folder. Receipts, transfers, the notarized loan agreement. The whole history of being useful. They thought I'd never use it. Maybe I thought that too. But that night I realized something simple and terrifying. The only thing holding this family together was my willingness to lose. And I was done losing. The next morning, I sat across from a lawyer who flipped through my folder like it was a crime scene report. It's enforceable, he said. Signed, dated, notarized. You can recover the debt or the property. Recover the property, I repeated. Cleaner than take the house. He outlined the process. A 30-day demand letter. Then foreclosure if Jessica didn't pay. When he asked if I wanted to proceed, I signed. My hand didn't shake. That scared me more than anything. The letter arrived the next day. Official and heavy. I read it twice and left it on the counter by the kettle. For a minute I considered tearing it up. Then I heard Lily's voice in my head. Did I do something bad? I folded the letter, slid it into the envelope, and dropped it in the mailbox. 2 days later, my phone lit up. Jessica's voice came through like a siren. Are you out of your mind? You're suing me? Not yet, I said evenly. The letter gives you 30 days. Mom's voice echoed behind her. You're overreacting, Dad added. We're a family. Rachel. Jessica pushed louder. This is about what happened with Lily, isn't it? You're punishing us. I'm holding you accountable. She's 12. We were teaching her consequences, showing her what happens when girls her age start with boys. She's a child, Jessica, not a cautionary tale. There was a pause, a hiss of breath. You'll regret this. Maybe, I said, and hung up. Afterward, I stared at the phone until the silence felt like oxygen. Old photos lay scattered on the table, Lily in her school uniform, Jessica at her wedding, our parents on that same porch that had watched everything. I opened the folder again. Numbers, signatures, a timeline of exploitation. I'm not stealing anything, I thought. I'm collecting receipts. Sleep avoided me again. Around midnight, Lily shuffled into the living room, dragging her blanket. Couldn't sleep, I asked. She climbed beside me and started scrolling. Then she froze. Mom, look, on her screen a photo from the birthday party. Brianna, my sister's daughter, just a few months older than Lily, posing with Tyler, matching bracelets, a heart emoji, the caption best birthday ever. My stomach turned. When was this posted? I asked. Yesterday, so that was it. Not morals, not protection, just jealousy wearing a halo. Jessica hadn't been teaching Lily a lesson. She'd been teaching her own daughter how to win. I printed the photo and slid it into the folder on top of the receipts. Not legal evidence. Something better, clarity. In the morning, I called my lawyer. Send the follow-up, I said. We proceed. He didn't ask why. Maybe he heard the steadiness in my voice, the kind that arrives when anger finally burns out and leaves metal in its place. The fallout came fast. Mom's voicemail started gentle. We love you, honey. Don't do this, and turned sharp. This isn't who you are. Dad tried logic. You'll tear the family apart. Ryan threatened to hire his own attorney. Jessica alternated between apologies and insults like emotional roulette. I didn't respond. Each morning, I checked my inbox for legal updates and certified mail confirmations. Each night, I stood in Lily's doorway and watched her sleep, reminding myself who this was for. One evening I drove past the house. Lights glowed. Laughter leaked through the glass. From the street, it looked like a picture of a family who'd never done anything wrong. I could have parked, knocked, let them apologize just enough to make me fold again. Instead, I kept driving. They used to say I was too serious, too cold. Turns out those traits make decent armor. For years they taught me to keep quiet, to forgive. They mistook restraint for weakness. But there's a difference between forgiving and forgetting. Some debts don't disappear, they come due. The first time I saw Jessica's video, I almost laughed. She'd filmed it in her car, mascara tracks glistening, voice trembling with theatrical sincerity. My own sister, she began, is trying to steal our family home. She forged documents, twisted my kindness. And now she's destroying everything we built. The thumbnail screamed my sister's betrayal in dramatic red letters. Classic Jessica tragedy with a filter, comments poured in. Family, friends, old co-workers, strangers with free time. Half called her brave for speaking her truth. The other half asked for mine. I didn't answer questions. I made a record. I typed 3 sentences. No hashtags, no flair. Since this was made public, my 12-year-old daughter was left at a shelter by her own family. I have every record, every transfer, every signature. Truth doesn't need theatrics. Then I put my phone face down and walked away. By morning, the comment section was a battlefield. People remembered her old projects that never quite paid investors back, or the time she used charity money on marketing. Screenshots surfaced. Stories spread. My silence started looking like strength. It wasn't strength, it was exhaustion wrapped in boundaries. 3 nights later, the doorbell rang. Rain hammered the porch. Lily was upstairs, reading. I opened the door to find Jessica with our parents behind her like mismatched backup dancers. Her hair was flat, her confidence flatter. We need to talk, she said. I stepped aside. I didn't say come in, but they did anyway, dripping on my rug, clutching their positions like damp coats. Mom held her purse like a lifeline. Dad hovered near the window. Jessica's eyes scanned my living room like she couldn't believe she was on the wrong side of ownership. I just spoke to a lawyer, she said. He said you could actually take the house. Could, I said. Will, Rachel, please, Mom started, voice trembling. We understand you're angry, but this has gone far enough, has it? I asked. Dad tried his reasonable tone. We all made mistakes. I laughed once, a sound with edges. Yes, some of us made the kind you can serve with legal paperwork. Jessica bristled. It was a lesson, that's all. You're blowing it out of proportion. You left a 12-year-old in a homeless shelter. She wasn't alone. She was terrified. I snapped louder than I meant to. I leveled my voice. You didn't teach her a lesson. You showed her who you are. For once, they were silent. Then Mom started crying. Jessica looked away, jaw tight. You've made your point, Dad said finally. Dad tried his reasonable tone. We all made mistakes. I laughed once, a sound with edges. Yes, some of us made the kind you can serve with legal paperwork. Jessica bristled. It was a lesson, that's all. You're blowing it out of proportion. You left a 12-year-old in a homeless shelter. She wasn't alone. She was terrified. I snapped louder than I meant to. I leveled my voice. You didn't teach her a lesson. You showed her who you are. For once, they were silent. Then Mom started crying. Jessica looked away, jaw tight. You've made your point, Dad said finally. You don't need to ruin us. I'm not ruining anyone, I said. I'm collecting what I already paid for. No one spoke after that. The rain filled the silence like applause nobody wanted. They left a few minutes later, muttering about getting their own lawyer. When the door clicked shut, I stood there for a long time listening to the rain. Lily appeared on the stairs. Was that them? Yeah. Did they apologize? Not really. She nodded like she expected that answer. Can we order pizza? Perfect timing, I said. 3 months later. The courtroom smelled like air conditioning and nerves. Jessica sat across the aisle, arms crossed, makeup flawless again, performance face back on. Mom avoided my eyes. Dad looked 10 years older. Ryan wasn't there. Even he had limits. Stop. My lawyer spoke first, steady and precise, laying out the timeline, every transfer, every signature, the notarized contract, each number like a nail tapped into wood. When Jessica finally took the stand, she said the money was a gift. The judge raised one eyebrow. A notarized gift with a repayment schedule? That was the only time I smiled. 15 minutes later, the decision was in. The totals equaled more than half the property's value. Judgment title transferred entirely to me. My lawyer slid the certified document across the table. It's yours now. I thought victory would be loud, triumphant. Instead, it felt quiet, like turning off a machine that had been humming in the background of your life for years. When I went to the house, it was already empty. Boxes gone, furniture gone, family gone. Only the faint smell of candles and paint remained. The kind of scent that pretends to be new. I walked room to room, letting the memories unspool. The hallway where Jessica used to stage her fashion shows. The bedroom we'd shared as kids when everything still felt like it might be fair someday. The kitchen where Mom hummed and ignored the red flags she'd sewn herself. In the corner of the living room sat a forgotten photo frame, our family smiling at Jessica's wedding. I left it there. A little museum exhibit to a story I wasn't telling anymore. In the kitchen, I ran my hand over the countertop. Smooth, clean, no fingerprints left, paid in full. I whispered, a year later, peace looks a lot like distance. I haven't spoken to them since court. I hear updates through cousins, always the best unpaid reporters. Mom and Dad downsized to a one-room apartment near the freeway. They say it's temporary. It rarely is. Jessica's life unraveled faster. Ryan left. He blamed her for losing the house. Credit tanked. Landlord stopped returning calls. The kids mostly live with him now. Someone said they saw her at the same shelter, the one she used to call her volunteer project. I didn't know what to feel. Not triumph. Something more like balance settling at last. Her channel technically still exists. Last video 14 views. Half of them are probably hers. Lily, on the other hand, is 13 now, confident, steady, funny. And yes, she's dating Tyler, the same boy she supposedly wasn't allowed to like. When he found out the whole story, he texted, "Guess I owe you a date." Now it's their favorite joke. The universe has a sense of humor. Or maybe just a sense of symmetry. I keep the old folder in the drawer, not as a weapon anymore, but as a reminder. Every debt leaves a record. Not all of them are financial. And that's where this ends. Too far, not far enough. You tell me.